Welcome to Between Two Pastries, a not-so-typical nutrition podcast. Nicole and Annie are licensed and registered dietitians. Join them as they discuss hot nutrition topics, challenge popular beliefs, and have a blast doing it. Here are your hosts, Nicole and Annie.
All right, welcome to Between Two Pastries. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
Changing the tone this time.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was just going to ask what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Annie and I got on the subject before we even decided to record this pod and just thought it would be maybe interesting and potentially insightful to kind of share with everybody. You know, there's this whole, ideal out there about and desire out there for obtaining health and what that looks like. And you all know that Annie and I have talked about this many times that, health is like, it's not being defined, as it needs to be, or it's being defined in all these different ways. And it's being defined in these other ways that are actually really unhealthy. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today is when trying to achieve health goes too far. Now, we could also call that disordered eating or an eating disorder. We can label it as having orthorexia. And if anybody knows what orthorexia is, that really just means that, again, there's all these food rules around it where they can only eat things that are considered healthy or things that are considered natural, or it's different for everybody. Everybody's going to define these things differently.
Yeah, it's an obsession with health in the grand scheme of things.
Obsession with health. And so my example, I had a newer client, and she might be listening, and that's A-okay. And this client was just so hung up with numbers and so hung up with recording and so hung up with I have to achieve particular macros and just so hung up in this area that we were completely going so far away to what created health for her. And one of the reasons why she came to me was because she had been, quote unquote, following a particular diet for a very long time. Her thyroid is completely messed up because of it. There's some other issues that are going on. And so, we wanted to start balancing her out. That was the whole idea. But she got real afraid. She got real afraid about balancing out to the point where I was encouraging her to add beans into her diet. And that seemed so scary as much as she loved beans. With someone like that, it simply comes down to, and I almost had to tell her, like, I can't give you what you're asking for because I'm enabling you to continue following your eating disorder. And that isn't ethical for me. Yeah, I think we're just opening up the subject to how far is too far. There's this whole, it's this whole concept of beliefs around if I achieve these macros, not only am I healthy, but that means it's a weight thing too. Nothing will happen to my weight, which isn't true. Macros actually have very little to do with that. It's ultimately hormone balance. And do you balance hormones, like different hormones that are produced? Yes, we've talked about that by consuming a balance of food. That's the only agenda you have, is to consume a balance of food when you eat. I'm sorry, Annie, you were about to say something. I was just trying to finish that thought.
No, I love that. So, okay, listeners are going to hear the story and they're going to think, well, I'm not that bad.
Oh,
or
yeah.
She said eating disorder. I don't have an eating disorder.
Right.
So many people who have food rules don't even know they have, or they don't, it doesn't even register.
That's a really good
to
point.
Them. Does it register they have disordered eating? Does it even register they have an eating disorder? And most people do. At the end of the day, whether it's clinically diagnosed or it's observable. And so I think, Nicole, we get these people, and I had my share as well, who are not ready for change, or they're not ready for the change that we, not even change. They're not ready for the potential that we would like to give them.
Well, that is true. And the other piece is that they're not really aligned with what health really means.
Correct.
Because they're actually living incredibly unhealthy.
And this is the irony that I try to explain to people, that like, you know, people think like, well, if I track and I have, X, let's not, he doesn't even need to have a number amount. If I have X number of calories a day, therefore I will lose weight. Therefore I'm healthy. And they make all of these very black and white statements when it comes to tracking, scales, food rules, food types, all of these different things. And again, obviously we've beat the horse with this stick. Like,
I know
we need, dieting is not the answer. And so many people get these things from dieting. But I mean, I can't tell you how many people you and I, between the two of us, have worked with that they truly believe that health is thinness, and they believe that something like beans that's not healthful, or that extracting all of the lactose out of a dairy item is the way to go. And again, lactose is a form of sugar, but lactose is a naturally occurring thing that's just like not bad.
It's not a thing. Yeah, I know.
I thought that ship sailed.
Well, but
I thought,
yes. Well,
who was I talking to? It was, I think it was Jocelyn, who's 14 years old. And we were talking about some friends of the family, and she's like, well, why don't they just have skim milk? Save a story. She just wrote, instead of having, whole milk, why don't they just have skim milk? And I kind of look at her, I'm like, oh, okay, that's an option. And she's like, but it's virtually the same thing. But I started thinking, and I'm like, how does a 14-year-old, how is she able to identify that whether it's skim milk, 1%, 2%, or whole, it's all about the same. It's 12 grams of carbs and 8 grams of protein.
Yeah, agreed.
She can articulate that. And trust me, she doesn't give a F about, like, she eats all not the things that she should. So like, either she's listening and I don't know she's listening, or some people have an ability to understand health differently than others.
Yeah. And that's a good way of putting it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And whether it's
all about perspective.
Because and maybe trauma happened, and trauma always 100% dictates someone's moral code. It dictates someone's decision-making, their rationale. It dictates their viewpoints and opinions on health, for example. Mm-hmm. So if someone experienced a parent who constantly, berated them about their weight or pant size or physical abuse or whatever, or even just said, why are you eating that?
Oh, of course. Just that simple question. Yeah.
Or a doctor who says, well, your BMI is 26.
Right. In a way that makes them think, oh, is that a problem?
and immediately when we feel shame, we do stupid things.
Right. And that's really true.
And it gets really to the point like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, but the other piece with that, and I feel like that's a good point, and there, for this particular client, there might be a story behind that as well. But it's also how things are being presented in media.
I can talk to that.
Even with some health educators, right?
Yes,
where it's like, no, we've got to be careful. And we've talked about this before. I say this all the time. We have to be careful about our words.
Two things on that. The health teacher at the school I went to for high school, she's like a personal trainer. Nothing against personal trainers, but is that who
we both are personal trainers, right?
Right. We both are as well.
We get it.
That doesn't mean I'm the person who should be teaching a health class.
I completely agree with you.
If that's my credentials. So, but anyways, just that came to mind when you said that. The other point I wanted to make is I had a person, an adolescent, yesterday was her 16th birthday. She's in treatment right now. And the protocol that we've set up is that the whole unit gets cupcakes for someone's birthday,
Sure.
just a nice gesture. We'll take cupcake. And again, it's a locked unit, and it's kids who don't get those experiences. I looked at my counterparts and I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just make her a card and give her a piece of cake discreetly, because of her, if you go into her history, it's quite evident she has issues with food and food rules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To be able to, instead of putting her in that position of like, oh, happy birthday and eat this cupcake. And now what have we done?
Sure.
Okay. So then I think, okay, so just kind of take that example and now you apply that to someone who has a fear of, just lactose or beans or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take them out to eat and someone doesn't know their whole story. Again, these fears that people live with, A, don't have to exist. And B, the more we're able to communicate with people and get to know people on a different level, the better off these things, like health won't be as big of an issue.
I know.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm articulating this the way I want
No,
to.
I see what direction you were taking that there. And I definitely agree with you 100%. Definitely.
It's sad. Those that are able to recognize their hangups, those are the ones that are going to go far. But
right.
if you are totally blind
Correct.
to the fact that I never eat dessert, I never eat beans, I
Sure.
only drink to the rules, if you are totally, and that weight obsession or macro obsession, you're just stuck. You're stuck all the time.
Yeah.
Period. They've started those behaviors at age 15, 16, and now
right.
they're age 50.
Right. Well, I think the thing that was really getting me, and this happened to another client this week too, is the obsession with label reading.
Oh, I hate labels so much.
And but it's the whole concept that there's, again, it's like another tool that has created fear. Instead of being just simply an education piece of, for whatever reason, it's created fear. Right. So it's like, I really want to eat this product, but oh my gosh, wait, how much of X does it have in it? Oh, I can't do that. It's just, too much or whatever.
My favorite is the added sugar. I mean,
I know
someone who
it's,
can of mixed fruit or whatever, fruit cocktail or whatever in a can. Well, that has so much sugar in it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's usually like not even one carb exchange. It's usually 15 or less. And then I started second guessing myself. I'm like, well, wait a second. Am I wrong on this? Like for, as a food expert, did I get it wrong? And so I flip, look at the can, 12 grams of sugar, no added sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's it's a serving of fruit. That's what a serving of fruit is. Yes.
So like,
that's the same. Yes. It's the same experience I had with this other client, another client. It was the same, absolute same thing. What about unsweetened applesauce? Can that fit in? It has 11 grams of sugar. I don't know if that's okay. This is what I mean by that.
That's scary. That's so scary.
It is.
It's an apple that's cooked.
That's right. And so that's why I'm saying these food labels are almost doing a disservice. And again, it takes us away from the actual food. It takes us away from the experience.
The celebration.
Or even just the how does my body feel, instead of I have to achieve these numbers regardless of how my body feels.
Right.
I could be starving, but I got my numbers. Or I'm too full, but I did, you know what I'm saying? Like because there's this disconnect is what I'm saying. There's just a physical disconnect to what I put in my mouth and how I am experiencing the whole thing.
Right.
And it still becomes a whole thing of how can I manipulate? How can I manipulate something to make something do what I want it to do, or make something do what I don't want it to do, right? Because
I gotta control it.
Yes, I have to control it because I have a lot of fear around experiencing something else that I consider god awful. Yes. So the other piece that I think is interesting is when I'm hearing people and maybe experiences that they've had with other I'll say quote unquote professionals because it's always sketchy. Like, people aren't always like working with people that are credentialed. And that's the other piece too. Like, people don't really know, like, they'll just say, well, this person is certified in something, but they don't really understand that that doesn't mean that they can do certain things, right?
Correct.
Or prescribe certain things. So anyway, the issue then also comes in where we're talking about this whole disconnect with body and the experience of eating is when, say, a certain professional or whatever will say, oh, well, you need X amount of, carbs, or you need X amount of, I hate the term macros, but you
after
have to
talking for 1 hour.
Right. You have to consume blah, blah, blah. And what I feel like that already does, and I'll say, like, there's the certain client where you're kind of working with that, but you're not really saying you have to hit it like this all the time, because I try to tell people you won't.
Right.
Because
you won't.
It doesn't actually work that way.
It's not life.
So my point is that it's such a disservice and creates such a danger when there are certain recommendations and guidelines that follow specific numbers, because it creates yet another reason to mistrust your body.
Right.
I'm experiencing this. It's making me uncomfortable, but I'm just going to ignore it because I am supposed to just do this.
Right. And if I do this, it'll all work out.
That's right. And so that's just part of my concern, because going back to even this particular client, that's what she did for a very long time. And look where it got her. Advancement of a disease, the beginning of another one. Her mind completely just... Right.
But Nicole, the retort is, that's not going to be me. That won't happen to me. That they'll be the one that's okay.
And Annie, you and I have talked about this. We have programs in regards to this. I mean, when you're looking at how to eat, it's like at a meal, you have, sometimes you need more carbohydrate because it's around a workout. Sometimes, you might need less because you're not that hungry. In addition to your protein, in addition to your all the other things in that meal, it's like, just look at your meal. Look at, how are you physically feeling? What do you feel you need and want right now?
I think people have convinced themselves, though, that they get sick when they eat sugar or carbs, or their tummy hurts, or so you talk about feeling, and people feel crappy. They've convinced themselves of that.
And you're right. And the other issue...
knowing biology, you can't feel crappy after eating carbs, period.
Right. Exactly. Because of how it changes your brain.
Correct. You can't. It is physically not possible. Right. Unless you have celiac disease. That's different.
So I think then the issue lies with that whole thing is when someone has not done that for so long and then they decide they're going to... That's the issue. It's this massive quantity then.
All or nothing.
Right. So it's like, I haven't done this for so long, right? Then they freak out and they're like, okay, I'm just going to do this now. But then it grows into, I'm not just going to have a serving. I'm not going to have 2 Oreos. I'm going to have 10.
I got to have it all.
Right. I'm not going to pick on that, but I'm saying, yeah, that's not going to make you feel good. But 2 Oreos isn't actually going to really affect you at all. Like, you're not going to get sick from that, like, unless you had celiac or,
Here's the other thing with feelings.
Oh my gosh.
Think about this. I'm going to give 2 scenarios. I eat all of these foods that I believe and think I shouldn't. I therefore will feel shame for eating them, shame and guilt. And that shame and guilt is what causes all the yucky feelings in our body.
That's correct.
Same with, I have a relative or a family member. I love them. They die. I feel awful about that. Now my body feels yucky.
Yes.
We have to we have to remember, food is not the problem.
No.
Because you eat sugar does not mean you're getting sick. It's because you have hang-ups with that food.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same with, I ate this. No, you have anxiety. You have anxiety about,
Correct.
and I just,
Let's put it.
We experience feelings within our body.
Yes.
The food is not the problem unless we've stopped eating it, of course, like you mentioned, for a period of time. Or, my favorite is, oh God, my stomach hurts. And they just had a, fish fry. Well, when was the last time you had a fish fry? Well, 12 months ago. I have one a year.
It's been a long time.
That's why. So just be okay with it.
Your body needs a little bit more time. It's not used to it. Yeah.
It's okay.
It is okay.
Did you enjoy the experience? Was it a celebration? Did it taste good?
Right.
Did you maybe eat too much because you only have one per year?
Right. That's the other thing.
Maybe fried food needs to be a little more regular. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're going against your, all the jargon out there of, I can't eat fried foods. Oh, right. That's not healthy. Well, it can be part of a healthful pattern.
Right.
So can dessert. So can all the foods that people believe they get sick from. You're not sick from the food.
Right.
You talked before about, media. So I was scrolling today and I almost took a picture of all 28 comments for you, but I
oh my
didn't.
Gosh, I would have been so upset.
I know.
Yeah.
And I just was like, and someone had commented in this group that I now don't follow anymore, but
good for you. It
came in there and it said, does anyone else experience weight gain after running or after a marathon?
Oh my
What
gosh.
is it? La, 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 la. I stupidly start reading comments.
I know.
Well, have you ever considered following macros?
Oh my God.
Have you ever, have you, that happens to me too. I make sure I just eat real little or I fast during my whole run.
Oh my gosh, you were kidding me.
So I comment and I said, you need to listen to Between Two Pastries and you need to go to this website. And if you have questions about how to optimize your nutrition and understand biology a little bit better, you need to seek out a sports dietitian, because what you're experiencing is fluid shifting at the cellular level. Right. And in order to understand that, you don't need a Joe Blow telling you to get on a scale. I said, stop weighing yourself, stop tracking. Right. Don't do any of that. I'm like,
and there's nothing to control. It's your body. That's the thing. People, we need to leave our bodies alone.
Leave them alone. What is your body doing for you? Not what your body looks like.
It's so frustrating.
I know, and now I'm angry again. I was soft, and now
I know.
I came into this pod ready to go and be nice, and now I'm amped up. I thought, is it not common knowledge that weight fluctuates with exercise? Period.
I know.
And if that's not common knowledge, don't assume that because you had a gel, you gained a pound.
But why are we weighing ourselves all the time?
Yes, I know. That's
why?
Right.
What's the point of that? I don't understand. And again, if we're doing that around exercise, then is that why we're exercising?
What's our intention?
Right. What is the intention for movement? Right. Exactly.
But what's more, are you training? Majority of people, and I'm generalizing here. Most people that I've worked with or known exercise to maintain or lose weight, period.
Right. Or the rite of passage to eat.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
and that was something else that was in all those comments was,
of course,
earning food. And I was mind blown. Yeah. And you had one or two that was like, don't track, don't wait. You had a couple people who were a little bit sensible in there.
Good for them.
Overall, it was just like, why is anyone not explaining that what happens with fluid post-run with recovery? And it hit me that most people don't know or they don't get it.
Right. And the people that they're believing are the same people who don't really know and don't get it because they're not credentialed enough to understand it.
And they're selling a product.
Absolutely.
If they're selling a particular diet or something, they don't want you.
No, they're selling an empty promise.
Understand it.
Correct.
They need you to gain that weight so you continue to do macros.
They need you to stay confused so they can keep you confused as well. Or validate.
Right. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, this stuff is so upsetting. Anyway,
deep breath.
Feeling really sad about so much of the hang up around labels, the experience, and also the disconnect from body and still the continued disconnect to what health really means. So anyway, I guess we can just
weight is
end on
not
that.
A thing.
Yeah.
Weight's
Right.
not an indicator
Right.
of health.
No,
period.
far from it. Far from it. Far from it. Yeah. Okay, guys.
I need a drink. It's 2 in the afternoon. I need a drink.
God dang it.
Have questions you want to hear discussed on the show? Find us on Facebook or visit between2pastries.com and drop us a line. Want to support the show? Find us on Patreon for exclusive content. If you love the show, find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review.